And I think in this election campaign, over the next few weeks, you are going to be amazed at how many people come and vote for us. And I genuinely think we can get more votes in this election than the Conservative Party.
It is a dramatic U-turn for the former UKIP leader, who had as recently as just a few days ago repeatedly ruled out standing in the election.
I made it all very clear last week that I had a 6-month plan. I was going to stand in a general election, but 6 weeks, not long enough.
Mr Farage, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Why?
I spent last week going around the country, campaigning, doing events, but in particular street canvassing. And two things happened. The first, I began to realise something is happening out there, particularly among a growing number of young people, a rejection of the whole political system as it is. But the most important factor were the number of people I met who said, why are you not standing? You know, we voted for you in years gone past, we backed Brexit. And I began to realise that millions of people who've been on this journey with me, in some cases for many, many years, were genuinely feeling let down by me. And I have to say, I got home on Saturday night and began to feel very, very guilty about that. So I decided I can't let those people down. I've got to go to the front again. And I have to say, I think we're going to get a very, very large number of votes in this election. Quite how mathematically that works out in seats is another question. But, yeah, I couldn't let those people down. And you know what? I also look at Labour and Conservative and kind of it almost doesn't make much difference who wins. So what was the most boring election campaign in history, hopefully, is a bit more lively now.
Mr Farage, can I ask you in detail about these conversations you've had over the last week? You're a straight talker, so I know you'll give this a straight answer. On the Sun TV last week, you were talking to Harry Cole. You said, I got rid of Mrs May with the Brexit Party. I stood aside for Boris to help a massive majority. I've done them some huge favours over the years as a party. Give me something back. I just wondered, over the last... That's what you said. Over the last few days, have you had any calls with any senior Conservatives with them either urging you to stand as a candidate for the Conservative Party or to do a deal where the Conservatives stand aside for Reform candidates in some seats? Have you had any conversations since your call for favours last Wednesday?
It was a rhetorical, what are they going to give me? You know, I've done all these things for them. What are they going to give me? And it was rhetorical because the answer is nothing. No, I have not. I did help them enormously back in 2019. There's no doubt about that. And what they've done is betrayed that trust.
So you've had no calls at all from any senior Conservatives at all in the last week saying, you know, let's find an accommodation, let's do a deal, become a Conservative. Nothing, zilch, nada.
No, not from the Conservative Party itself, absolutely nothing.
Any senior Conservatives. We know that Suella Braverman, Liz Truss has said they want you back, but senior Conservatives in the campaign or outside the campaign?
The only phone calls I've really had are from people saying, please don't stand against me, please don't stand against me. I've had a lot of phone calls from people asking for favours, nothing constructive whatsoever. And remember, at the heart of the Conservative Party, they loathe me, they always have.
So why have you had no calls?
Because they loathe me. They loathe me. Look, you know, when they say...
So you concluded the only solution now, because there's no deal to be done, your analogy with Reform in Canada, you've decided there's no deal to be done, so you're going to have to destroy them. That is what you're about now, the destruction of the Conservative Party.
No. I cannot do a deal with people who betrayed my trust. There was a very, very specific promise on the back of Brexit and the 2019 win that migration into Britain would reduce. It has exploded. Net 750,000 people every single year. This ought to be the immigration election because of the impact it's having on the lives of everybody. And look, let's face it, Ed. Labour have won the election already. It's over. The question is, who is the voice of opposition going to be, which you need in a healthy democracy? And it can't be the Conservative Party. They don't agree on anything. They've spent most of the last 4 years fighting each other rather than fighting for the country. And I believe the time is now right for a political revolt for a new movement in British politics that is much closer to ordinary folk. And our aim and our ambition, and what I'm going to try and do, is to be that voice of opposition in the next Westminster Parliament. That is the short-term aim. The long-term aim is to build a political movement that can challenge for the 2029 general election.
But you made the Canada analogy, and what happened there was that the Conservative Party essentially collapsed and a new party formed, which was from the ashes with the Reform Party. That's what you're about. You're not really about simply being a Reform MP. What you want is for Reform essentially to become the new Conservative Party with Conservatives in Parliament with you as leader. And the truth is, if Keir Starmer wins a big majority, that helps you.
You know, I'm not destroying the Conservative Party. They've destroyed themselves. The brand is broken. It doesn't even matter now what Rishi Sunak promises because nobody believes them. They have broken trust with the country over the last few years in the most astonishing way. And I think we need a new force in politics, one that thinks outside of the Westminster bubble. And that's our ambition, that's our aim. And if we can realign, if we can actually get a realignment of the centre-right, a coherent party that believes in low taxes, that supports men and women running small businesses, that believes in controlling our borders, if we do that, then we can seriously challenge Keir Starmer in 2029.
If the Tories had rung you and offered you a seat, would you have taken it?
They've done that in the past. I was offered a safe seat some years ago by the Conservatives, and I said, it's very kind of you, but I can't accept it because I just don't think you guys actually stand for anything.
But if they'd done it this time round?
No, absolutely not. In no way at all. They've broken promise after promise. I mean, frankly, they just go around lying to the country at general elections and then betray them in government, so no.
It sounded so much on The Sun last week that is what you were proposing. And if you look at the list, Eastleigh, Salisbury, Bexhill, South Thanet, Bromley, Buckingham, South Thanet, you lose and lose and lose. Is this now, is it possible?
Mr. Bulls.
If you were a Conservative, you'd have much more chance.
2 points to make. Number one, all those times I stood all over the place, I stood for UKIP, a party that was about that big, and we did it as a pressure group to raise our issue. They were never serious contests to win seats. I've stood once in a general election, a serious fight. And do you know what happened? The Conservatives broke the law, cheated against me so much that one of their party's agents got a 9-month prison sentence suspended. So that is nonsense. And I also would point out, I've won 2 national elections leading 2 different parties, something nobody has ever done before. And I do genuinely have millions of people out there that support me. And I think in this election campaign, over the next few weeks, you are going to be amazed at how many people come and vote for us. And I genuinely think we can get more votes in this election than the Conservative Party. Nobody believes them or trusts them anymore. So this is an attempt at a fresh start in British politics, something brand new. I know that history says these things are difficult, but you know what? I'm going to give it a damn good go.
The only thing I'd say, Mr Farage, SDP, UKIP, lots of different small parties, they never work. The route for you was to become a Conservative MP and leader of the Conservative Party, and I don't believe you've given up on that yet. A reformed, a realigned party after the election. You know, do you rule out you being leader of the Conservative Party in the next 5 years?
UKIP was massively successful. Name me a more successful party in British politics than a small group of people who get together, form a political party, fight election after election after election, take 20 years to make any breakthroughs at all, but achieve their goal of Britain leaving the European Union. I think UKIP was immensely successful. Look, I have no interest in this Conservative Party. And frankly, I think the people that control the Conservative central office, that run the party apparatus, they're not Conservatives, they're Social Democrats.
So you'll never... OK, so Nigel Farage, so you'll never stand for the Conservative Party and you will never lead the Conservative Party?
Not as they currently are. No.
That's very revealing. This Conservative Party, not as they currently... A week ago you said you weren't going to stand to be an MP and you've changed your mind.
I don't know what I'm having for lunch in 10 years' time, all right? I don't know how the world's going to look in 10 years' time.
You should know what your political principles are.
My political principles... My political principles for 30 years have been to fight the establishment from without. That hasn't changed. You can speculate as to what will happen in 3 or 4 years' time. All I will tell you is if Reform succeed in the way that I think they can, then a chunk of the Conservative Party will join us. It's the other way round. And you mentioned Canada. What happened in Canada was Reform did a reverse takeover of the Conservative Party, rebranded it, and Stephen Harper, who was elected as a Reform MP, became the Canadian Prime Minister for 10 years. I don't want to join the Conservative Party. Right. I think the better thing to do would be to take it over.
Exactly. It wasn't me who mentioned Canada. It was you who mentioned Canada, not the Conservatives, the new Conservatives, not this Conservative Party, the next Conservative Party. The plan emerges, Mr. Farage.
The plan is to fight until July the 4th to get a genuine voice of opposition into Parliament whilst the Conservative Party spend the next few years tearing themselves to pieces.
Well, there's an election to be held, and that is in the hands of the voters. Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Here are all the candidates currently standing in that particular constituency of Clacton, and the final list will be announced on Friday.